Welcome everyone to episode 89. Yeah, after the double eights, we are on 89 now of getting copy with it. So I don't know what's going on, dude.
Yeah, not much, man. More of the same. Down under, dealing with the shiznit, getting up on things and trying to get ahead of the curve. It's Christmas time and things are getting a bit hectic, so we've got a lot of dingo babies out on the streets and lots of shrimps being put on barbies around that time of year. So you got to be cautious out there. You got to watch for the drop bears and flaming glass.
I hear you, man. You don't. Nothing's really worse than getting a random surprise drop bear attack. I mean, I hear that's what got Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, people get complacent. They think they know how the outback works and how it is down under. And as soon as you let your guard down, that's when you get taken out by a freaking drop bear.
Yeah, you learn how to throw a boomerang. Play a little didgeridoo, meet a couple of Aborigine guys, and next thing you know, like you're just too comfortable with it, and the drop bears come in to remind you.
Yeah, but you can only play didgeridoo if you're a male because it's sexist. Didgeridoo's a sexist.
Well, yeah, I mean, dude, you couldn't really expect a female to pull off a didgeridoo now. I mean, come on.
What can you do, mate?
That,
Don't
re-
mind me.
that
I'm just cracking my baboon, getting myself ready. You know what I'm saying?
that totally reminds me. I miss Nathan K. We need to find Nathan K. And maybe one of these days we need to wrangle Thomas Robert Gent on here. Since they're both people that live in a reasonable time zone for the show. But yeah, it is what it is. Fuck, I don't know, dude. We had any topics on the board for this week, or we just
Yeah. Well, look, the past couple of weeks have been a bit of a shit show, haven't they? Been all over the joint and
yeah.
just shooting from the hip, if you will. Yeah. But I've still got the list from before, and I've added a little bit to it. So I'll bring them up on my phone here. Just pulling that up. All right. So when I leave a gap, that's the end of that topic and the start of the next one, right? So something I've got here. It's quote, "Feel it to heal it." Right. Another one is the martyr mindset. Right? The inner child. Right? The purpose of forgiveness. We all remember that one, right? When we started talking about that, but then we got derailed. We went into a bunch of different stuff. It was all good. Unnatural selection, metatribalism, trapping relationships with kids. That was something that we touched on, and we kind of we glazed over it like it wasn't really a thing. But I think it's something that we feel we need to talk about. The I'm offended culture. It's another one, and the last one, why we are scared to look at each other. That's everything on my list.
Oh man, so we earlier, Patient Zero was there. We got a little bit into that topic down yonder. Wait, I don't know what's going on. Why is everybody screaming? Wait. Okay, so yeah, we kind of got like a little bit into this topic, and Krim showed up, but Krim's not here now. So unless you guys want to like ping Krim and bug her, because she totally had some opinions on the matter. But we were totally kind of like discussing the topic of like abortion, and then like the gender roles whenever it comes to relationships, and I don't know. I mean, I think all around everybody had some decent like input on it, but apparently is Ryan freaking out because I'm not online again? Is that what's going on?
It could be.
Fuck, dude, I don't even know anymore, man.
You should be online. Like you should know. He's told you enough times. Test, retest, all that kind of scientific stuff.
Word. Okay. So yeah, like we kind of got into that a bit, and we were kind of like going back and forth on the abortion thing. And yeah, I mean, like I get it. It's a heated fucking thing, all right. But I don't know. Like I feel like there are totally some some like inconsistencies in how the genders are treated in regards to this, obviously, and like I don't know, because I can totally see it both ways, but I mean, I think it's worth discussing. Like obviously, it's a woman's body. That's a really big decision, and like I can totally understand that they need to be able to make whatever decision they want to make, and do things accordingly, right? But also, I mean, I feel like there's some very like inconsistent ways where the men's side of things are handled. Like one, you get zero input whenever it comes to like the terminating of a pregnancy. So if we can accept that, but then you know if there's already like zero input, like men get no say in that, then we get to the okay. So we look at the consequences of what happens if you do carry out that pregnancy, right? Well, then we're now put into a situation where we're basically like forced to pay child support, right? And like I can pretty much agree on this. Like like if you give birth to a child, you should be helping to support it, etc. But I feel like you should also probably have like at least some kind of say in what happens. With the whole conception period, I don't know how we handle that because obviously this is why this is such a contested issue. But yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and that was just one of the things that like I pointed out. And Krim was talking about there are like lots of these like gender inequality issues where we have these kind of like fights or whatever you want to say going on in society. And yeah, I mean, like I think the idea of you know revolving around the children, the reproduction aspects, like yeah, there's some pretty fucking like absurd inequalities, like the fact that men are generally going to lose any kind of like custody hearings, and unless you can basically like prove the woman's like addicted to some kind of like hard drugs and endangering the children, yeah, good luck, right? Um, like there's just like a bunch of these different things, and this is just revolving around children. Like I mean, we can get into the other things, and one of the things like I've mentioned and got into in this show before is the fact that where I live, it's technically worse for me to go and like carry marijuana around me in the city than it is to go and rape someone. Now, I mean, I can say like either way. We can all make our decisions here about what we feel is quote unquote worse. But if you look at the laws and the way that the laws are enforced and the punishment that you would get for either one of these crimes, I can tell you legally it is almost like infinitely worse to get caught with marijuana because you can get up to 20 years in prison for a first offense marijuana charge here. But for a first offense rape charge, you're going to most likely get probation if you can afford a lawyer. Now, doesn't that seem kind of absurd to you, Cope?
Well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Everything sounds pretty goddamn absurd to me. Yeah, and this is the thing when it comes down to like the legal side of things. Like essentially, it's a bunch of people that we consider to be thieves and liars, making a bunch of rules written down on paper that we need to abide by. Now, just that in itself is just crazy. But one of the things you're pointing out there is like the semantics, if you will, of the situation. We delve into it and it doesn't make any sense. And there's plenty of examples of that kind of thing. So just in general, I'm looking at the legal side of things and just going like, yeah, nah, not interested. That's just ridiculous. Even just like one of the things that I lean on, particularly in America, is like you can't have prostitution unless you're filming it, of course, because then that falls into a different category. It's the same thing. The only difference is you're adding a video camera, and that makes a huge difference apparently. When realistically, it is the same thing. It just is the same thing. It's a loophole, if you will. And this is the kind of ridiculousness that we start dragging into, the various areas of the legal side of things. So I tend to leave that shit alone because, like I said, it doesn't make any sense. It's a rigged game that's we kind of get convinced that we can play this game and win in some way, shape, or form, but you don't. The people that are involved in this, they don't win. The people who do win are the people that are representing other people, the judges, the specialists that are called on. They all get paid, right? And they all take their pay out of like what you're going to win, right, by going through the legal system. So I don't really see any of this being beneficial to anyone. when, the way that it represents itself is that these legal systems and that kind of thing, they're there for justice, and they're there for the people, and they're to make sure that everything's fair in love and war. When realistically, it's not. It's just there to make a buck off you. So the sooner we realize this, the sooner we can separate ourselves from this the legal side of shit, and just not deal with it. Because obviously, if you settle out of court, right, you can settle the shit out of court. It's a lot easier. But yeah, dialing back to the whole situation at play, I wasn't there for the initial conversation. I was only there for the one that we had on the last Copy and Philosophy when we were talking about it. And essentially, I think the way that it came up was we were talking about trapping people in relationships with kids. Like, if you're having a rough time in your relationship, you're not getting on, you're fighting all the time. Things are getting crazy. What you do is you just have a child, right? Because that fixes everything. And yeah, that's a little bit ridiculous. But some people tend to try and do this without the other partner's consent. So the air quotes common version of this is women who say they're on the pill and that kind of thing, and they get pregnant to keep the man, if you will. And what was being discussed in the chats was the flip side of that, where you were saying that there's a particular demographic of males that sort of like get together and discuss different ways of being able to trick the female into thinking that they're wearing contraception. They take it off halfway or like whatever it is, and they try and have the child, right? And obviously, it's a bit of a different game, if you will, air quotes game, for the males, because the thing is, like, it is the woman's body. Like you were saying, the woman can make the decision. It's sort of like, oh, okay, well, I got pregnant, right? And you tried to deceive me, screw me over, and I'm not having the kid job done. But of course, there's also additional complexities to that when it comes down to women being in charge of their bodies. There's a lot of places that don't, allow abortion, that kind of thing. It's a big thing. Like it's a big bag of goddamn nuts to crack open and go through each one individually and see what's going on. So it can be a difficult thing to sort of get a good understanding of. But for me, it was more about like the mental process that somebody goes through to say, you know what, like our relationship sucks. We keep cheating on each other. We're beating each other up. There's abuse. There's a whole bunch of different bits and pieces. And thinking that having a child is actually going to fix it. That's kind of like the mentality that I was coming from going into this conversation. And yeah, look, it's multifaceted. Like the whole thing's multifaceted. So depending on which thread you want to pull on, Clay, pick a thread. Let's pull on it and let's see what happens. Yeah.
Well, I guess if we're gonna start it, I guess any thread on this here, and I can tell you already, this is a topic that, like, personally, I just don't get into all that often. And one of the very main reasons for this is, like, I can tell you guys, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. I was raised Catholic. So, just like the level of, like, vitriol that the Catholic community has towards the whole concept of abortion is some next level shit. I mean, like, these are the motherfuckers that will go and, like, picket the abortion clinics and, like, firebomb them and, like, this kind of shit. So just to give you, like, some kind of fucking idea, like, they don't even, like, want to have the discussion. I would say, like, if there is a thread to pull on, I think this would be, when does life begin? And you've got the people that believe that is the moment of conception. You've got the people that believe the moment of, like, live birth. You've got the people that believe whenever our heartbeat starts. It's complicated, right? Because one thing that I think, if you've been listening to this show for a while, you'll understand, our beliefs and our perceptions create our reality, right? So whenever, like, let's say somebody that has, like, that moment of conception mentality, let's say they're on the male side of things, right? And whoever they've gotten pregnant is like, no, there's no way this is happening. I will be terminating this pregnancy into discussion. Well, from their point of beliefs, they now have the duty to defend a human life in their perspective, because according to their beliefs and everything, you are literally murdering their child. I can't say that somebody isn't right to feel that way. I can't tell you. Anybody that says they know the answer on this question is just either
Wrong.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's the thing though. Like, you've got to at least understand that, like, if we can have these beliefs and this is truly like the reality that we live in, you've got to kind of like at least understand or like have some kind of respect for like whoever that guy is. Like, his opinion is literally you are murdering his child and give him zero say in it. I can't say whether that's right or wrong or not, but I think it's just kind of a pretty good level of inequality here, right? Like, the way the laws are stacked, one, the women get to make that decision. Two, if they don't want to stay with you, like, let's say there's no relationship there, you're now stuck paying for a child that you most likely won't ever really get to see or know for the next 18 years. Also, like, if you wanted to keep the kid, who knows? Like, you're still subject to both of those same things. Yeah, and I mean, then we also get into the other complexities about people either stealthing and taking out their condoms, or like women lying about being on birth control. Personally, having kids has never been like, I don't know, like, personally, it's never something that like I felt like I was going to pursue in my life. Like, I don't have anything against kids or anything like that. I just, like, me personally, I've never like had a strong urge to pass on my gene pool, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I don't even know like where to begin. But like I said, if you want to start pulling on some thread, I think like one thing that we would have to discuss is, where does life begin?
Well, I think that's all it comes down to, the the classic subjective objective situation. Because if we look at this from a number of different perspectives, like, say what you were leaning on there was the whole, taking um, someone's child away from them, like, regardless of whether it's, male or female, that there is a life that's being terminated here. But what if we take out that subjectivity of, like, my perspective versus my partner's perspective, and go into, like, the deep dark area of, if someone is raped and they become pregnant, right? Is that the same thing? I mean, you're taking this person's child away from that kind of thing. We remove that personal stake in the situation, right? Where it's sort of like we have to remove that subjectivity and look at the objectivity of the situation, and that's where we come to sort of like so I think a more scientific means of looking at these things, because when we get driven by emotion, we can, have a number of different biases and things come up, and personal opinions and these kinds of things. But if we take all of that away, it's sort of like a clearer vision of what we're talking about. So with that removed, in that situation, like, are we really saying that in this situation that a woman was raped and she becomes pregnant? Now she has to carry that full term, and she has to deal with that situation when it's clearly something that she didn't want to happen, and that's what we're going to do. And because the Bible says so, because the government says so, again, leaning on the fact that abortion is not approved in particular areas. Is this really what we're saying here? Like, I don't really think it's a good way of looking at it, right? So we need to be able to have that discussion and talk about the options that should be available to individuals. And I suppose we can see it from the male perspective and the female perspective as well. But realistically, it is not. As a male looking at a female and saying, like, I don't want you to have this child. It's not my body. I can't really make that decision. But you know what I could have done? Not taking part in the action, right? That set off this chain reaction. So this is what I mean. Like, in the personal situation, when it's just trying to think of the best way to word it. You can make a decision, right? It's all a bunch of decisions that lead up to this situation, right? So I don't really see the relevance of the subjective perspective of, like, well, it's I should have a say in it. Well, you did have a say in it. Like, both parties had a say in it when you committed that's crime, that's sin, right? As the Bible says, because you're supposed to be married, right? Well, you shouldn't have done that, right? Because now you're in that situation, and as a male, right, I make sure that I take all the precautions necessary to make sure that doesn't happen, so I don't end up in that situation. And that's what I mean. Like, it's you have to take some personal responsibility in the situation, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I totally get that too. I don't know, man. I feel like, on the whole, it's a very, like, dynamic and obviously complicated issue. And then you bring in the issue of consent into the equation. And,
Hmm.
like, it just throws, like, another whole monkey wrench into the situation because, like, what if you're just, like, some, like, Catholic rapist that just wants to go around raping women and then forcing them to have your children because, you believe they're murdering a human life if they don't. Like, obviously that shouldn't be permitted. I feel like the way things are currently going in the US, we're going to have one of two things happen. One, they keep, like, cracking down and making basically abortion impossible to have. The outcome of that is we go back to the old days, and I think that's a terrible fucking idea. I'm not a fan of, like, outlawing pretty much anything because the whole thing is, like, when you create these laws, all you really do is create new criminals because they're still gonna do the same shit they're gonna do either way. And your laws aren't gonna really do anything to fix that situation. Murder is illegal. We still have people getting shot every night. Uh, and if we took away the guns, you'd still have people getting stabbed or beaten to death. Like, these laws don't fix anything. And then let's say you ban abortions, and then say, well, in these certain instances, it's legal. Like, say you got raped. Say, like, it's medically endangering for the mother. These kind of things. Well, what's going to happen then? One, rape allegations are going to go way up because it's not your only way to, like, legally get an abortion, or you're going to have to be able to prove you're having some kind of, like, illness that makes you unfit to carry a child to term. Like, nothing we do is going to get rid of abortion. So, like, to me, like, that's not even the debate. Like, I don't even. One way, since the beginning of time, people have been figuring out ways to get out of this situation, if you know what I'm saying. But, yeah, I mean, I just think whenever we get into the realm of who gets a say in that matter, like, there's a big part of me that agrees, like, entirely with what you said, Cope. Like, if the mother has to carry the baby to term, it's her decision. But also, I'm saying, like, if we're trying to be, like, compassionate and empathetic people, then we have to understand that, right or wrong, sometimes the fathers do have beliefs that create these situations where they totally, as far as their beliefs go, would believe that you doing this means you're murdering their child. So,
Hmm.
I think that's why it's such a polarizing issue. But, I mean, it's this, like, I'm not saying it's only men that feel like this way. Like, there's plenty of, like, especially where I grew up, there's a large Catholic. It's a major, I guess you could say, like, religion here. There are plenty of, like, teen pregnant moms that are Catholic, and, like, they go back and forth battling with their own, like, ideals of what right and wrong here, right? Like, so many of them believe they're going to go to hell if they do this. So then, I mean, here's another absurd thing to keep in mind here. Like, it's literally just as bad to quote unquote be gay as it is to get an abortion here. You know what I'm saying? Like some of these things are just, like, so fucking absurd. Like, I don't think your sexual orientation should ever really be a question of right or wrong. I think, like, my biggest thing that I'm getting at here is I feel like there should at least be some kind of consensus between the parents, or, you know, it takes two to tango, right? But it only takes one to make a permanent decision in that regard. And I mean, it's complicated, right? Because, like, as I said before, the reason why I would say it's kind of unequal is if you get no say in this and she's going to carry to term, well, what if, say, you were pro-abortion and you told her, no, I didn't agree to this, like, you stopped taking your birth control, you intentionally tried to trap me with a kid, and now I have to spend the next 18 years of my life paying for this decision. I mean, like, you got to be able to look at it both ways. And that's why I feel like if it's a complete like inequality of power in this situation. And yes, like I totally get there's plenty of like situations where that's reversed, where men totally have more power. But I feel like if we're trying to get like to any kind of equality, I think there should at least be like some kind of discussion, some kind of conversation in these situations to where you know maybe it's not quite such like a polarizing issue. And I mean, I think like on some level it's always going to be, because ultimately you're going to have people saying life begins at conception on one side, and you're going to have people saying, women's right to choose, blah, 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 on the other side. And it's just like these two ideologies are never going to be able to peacefully coexist. And yeah, where does that discussion begin to create some peace there, Cope? I don't know.
Yeah, look, like I said, it's multifaceted, it's very complex, and it's difficult to sort of like, even just now talking about it, it's difficult to stay on one topic because it is so multifaceted. Um, and yeah, like I said, I think if we remove the subjective and stick to the objective, we have a better chance of getting somewhere, like making some kind of ground on that situation. But as far as like what you're saying there in regards to the male and their thoughts and their opinions and all that kind of stuff, like I said, I just keep winding the whole thing back to like the very start before you have any kind of sexual interaction, right? And I know we're just animals, right? Reptilian brains kicking in and telling us to reproduce and have kids and all that kind of stuff. You got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Chemicals are going crazy, but neurons firing and shit like that. Like I get it, right? I've been there. But like I said, it comes down to like how much control do you have? Like, are you really in control of your body? Because if you are, you should be able to take the step back and go, okay, what are we doing here, and what are the implications of what we're doing, right? Even if you're trying to be 100% safe with what you're doing, like she's on contraception, different bits and pieces, because you got the thing you can stick in your arm for a good amount of time. You got the pills, a bunch of things, and you've got a condom, you got the thing going on, all that kind of stuff. But there's still that percentage, right? That something could happen there. Now that's a risk that you're taking. You're rolling the dice. Are you willing to take that, right? And I'm talking more along the lines of, and again, this is not saying that there's anything wrong with this, but people that like to sleep around a bit more and that kind of thing. I think that it's more of sort of like it's on the back burner. It's like, well, yeah, like it could happen. I don't care. I'm just gonna I need to fuck, right? So off they go, they do their thing, and then when these things happen, that's when problems arise, because it can be to a point where you'll be like, well, I just don't want to have kids with you, right? Because you were just someone that I was sleeping with, you're someone that I was seeing for a short time, that kind of thing. And that can be both ways as well, right? That's what I mean. Like it's just one of those things that we really need to take more consideration with when we're performing that act, right? Because this is what happens. You have to put a certain amount of trust and faith in the other person that you're interacting with, and if these things happen, have the discussion beforehand, like know what's going on, and know that people lie, right? So people can lie. These things can happen, and if you're looking at that person going like, you know what, I don't really think I could see this panning out that way, well, maybe think twice, right? Have a bit of a think about it. And I know it's hard. Like I said, you got your little hormones kicking, all that kind of stuff, neurons firing, all that kind of shit. Yeah, I know it's hard, right? But other people fucking do it, right? So why don't you practice a little bit of that? It's a bit of self-control, right? And really think about what you're doing before you get in that situation. I mean, for me personally, like I said, I think it's one of the things that's personally saved me from a lot of these kinds of situations. I know in my personal life, I've had a few individuals that have wanted to go down that route with me and have tried a number of like just crazy shit, right? Just crazy ass. Because you know me, man. I stick with crazy people for some reason. And after experiencing that, I changed a lot of the things that I was doing based on that. Right? Because I'll tell you the truth. I was naive beforehand. I believed rainbows and butterflies and all people are good, and if you dig down deep enough, you're going to find that. When really, people are just bastard-coded bastards with bastard feelings and bastard flakes sprinkled along the top. So you got to look after yourself. You got to be careful. You got to, take this into consideration. That can be difficult for people to do because it means you got to put those instincts aside. You got to delay the pleasure to do things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, just like as a sidebar here, Cope, we can totally trade for a little while if you want. I'll trade the always getting involved with people in a relationship thing for your crazy for a while. We could just see what the other side of the coin's like. But no, like I totally am with you on this, and like it's something that like I personally have, to the best of my ability, always been pretty conscious of. I one like I don't just sleep with people, so like I'll tell you that straight up. I'm not no judgment on anybody that does, but like if I'm going that far with somebody, like we're gonna already have like a pretty good understanding of what our expectations are. Like I don't know. That's just me personally. Like I don't really do like the spontaneous like random hookup thing. But yeah, I mean like I feel like if you're wanting any kind of a say in this situation, that yeah, like that should be an obvious like first step before even getting into the situation is understanding where both people's heads are at and making sure you're on the same page. And yes, like what you're saying, obviously sometimes people lie. I can tell you there's plenty of guys out there that will lie and say they want to have a kid just to sleep with a woman, or they'll lie and say they don't just to sleep with a woman. There's plenty of women that'll do similar things just to, maintain a relationship, etc. They're, like we could, God, like go on forever with all these intricacies. But, yeah, I mean, I think obviously some kind of like effective communication beforehand is the logical and intelligent thing to do here. Because one, like if you're going to be getting that intimate with someone and you have these kind of feelings that are that strongly about the situation, then you should probably have some kind of comprehension or understanding of where their beliefs lie in the first place, right? Because like if you're gonna do the horizontal hokey pokey with them, you might want to know if they're gonna quote unquote murder your child because you got them pregnant, or I mean, just whatever your beliefs are on the situation. I'm saying, like, if you're not involved with somebody that's at least somewhere along the same ideological path with you, then obviously these issues are gonna come up, and they're gonna keep coming up. And it's not just about children. It's not just about the topic of abortion or any of these things. Like, if we don't have some kind of like effective communication with other people, then we're going to continually find ourselves in these situations. But also, I think there's a major level of like self-awareness needed in these situations too, right? And so much of this stuff you'll never know until you're in the situation, right? Like I can tell you, I grew up with tons of women that said they would never in their life consider abortion because it's murder. And you know what? I can assure you that several of them have had an abortion. Even just going off statistics. But, that's the thing. Like, you can grow up having these ideologies thrust upon you from birth and, being indoctrinated into them. But when you're in the situation, you have to, like, really think it through and make, like, that's a big fucking decision. Like, I can't imagine very many women would, like, trivially make that decision. Like, it's huge, right? Like, I can't even really begin to fully comprehend the level of, responsibility you would feel for carrying another life around inside of your body for 9 months. But yeah, like trying to make that decision, I'm not trying to like trivialize it here or anything by saying like men get zero say in that, because like I do, like I fully respect that this is a massive fucking decision, and bickering with somebody else about it and like having to feel like all that extra guilt isn't going to help anyone. But also, I really feel like we need to look at the way the system works sometimes and realize that this inequality and these obviously like the lack of foresight to even have these communications are helping to create this polarizing issue where people feel so heated about. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and we've got to take that into consideration, the whole interaction between people, right? How we do things. because unfortunately, what we tend to do is tell people what they want to hear so we can get what we want. And I know that there's plenty of people that go through this kind of thing in relationships, where when it gets to the end of the relationship and it's finally all done and dusted, and they're like, man, that person wasn't who I thought that they were, or who they represented themselves as, and that kind of thing. And I don't know why I wasted my time with them. And that brings up like another good point in the situation here is like knowing when to pull the bloody plug. Right, we've got like this mentality where oh, I've been with this person for 2 years, or like however many months or years that it is, and I don't want to just waste all that time and throw it all away and all that to be for nothing. So I will accept whatever flaw it is that has something that they've hidden from you for X amount of time, and it's come to the surface. And instead of going like, "Whoa, that's a big flag for me," because number one, you lied to me, right? And you did a really good job of it for X amount of years. Number two is the fact that this thing is, it's it's one of those detrimental things to the relationship where, like, I am so different from what you are, but now we're stuck in a situation, right, where we're in a relationship, and we can kind of like in our minds like manipulate ourselves to go like, I can live with this. I don't want to throw away that the whole sunk cost fallacy and all that kind of stuff, where we don't want to throw that away, so we just adjust the schema of the mind and go, okay, well, I will accept this, if that, and you have a conversation. Of course, you get more lies, more bullshit, more intricate web is spun, and you continue down this path with this individual that clearly is different from. They're walking a different path, Izzy, than what you're walking, and somehow you try and make it work when realistically you should have just pulled the plug there and then. And I think that this is the kind of thing that we end up with when we have that whole, having a child to fix a relationship. That's kind of like at the end of that road is where that lies. Is you've gone through all this rough up and down, back and forth kind of thing, and really you should just let it go. You should just let go of the relationship and go, okay, we did what we did. We've gone as far as we have, but we're too different to continue. I do not want to continue down this path, and let it go. Instead of doing that, we continue down the path and we end up in a situation where we're trying to have kids to sort of like make the relationship better. We're trying, like, we get more and more invested. We're getting married to make the relationship better. We're doing all these bits and pieces to try and make the relationship better, when realistically we're trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole, right? And we need to recognize this within ourselves. And again, this is something that we've discussed a few times on the show here, Clay, where, like, even just the fact where I'm saying, crazies and stuff, and you're saying like married people and that kind of stuff, like, we identify this in ourselves. We recognize these patterns within ourselves, reflection, personal reflection, and understanding that we need to apply interventions before it gets to this place, right? Because when it does, that's when we have like these hard decisions, this terrible shit that we have to deal through. And like, look, I'm not saying it's easy. Like, if I was put in a situation where I had to make a decision on whether my child was going to live or die, right, would be devastating for me. Like, regardless of what I chose, right? It'd be devastating.
So Cope, I think like a good tie-in topic here, and I can tell you personally, like, this is something that I don't know, like, I've kind of like struggled with the idea of whether or not this should even really be like a thing or be necessary. But what do you think about the topic of relationship contracts, right? To give you like some kind of context here, like looking back on the Steam blockchain, there was a pretty famous person, quote unquote, that in the past basically had these relationship contracts with their partners. And I mean, they, like, just to give you guys some context here, these things would go to the point of, I get X amount of blowjobs per week. But like, I mean, it's broken down to like that degree, right? Personally, I'm personally not a fan of even like the legal idea of marriage, right? Because I don't want the state involved in my relationships. But two, I mean, I feel like they come with so much just like historical baggage might be like a good word for it. Like there's so much like expectations to me that just don't really, I don't know, like make sense in my mind. I mean, as a person that's always been monogamous, and I don't really feel like that's gonna change. And I mean, yeah, like I do like the idea of having like a life partner, etc. I don't really like the idea of like having a legal document to say that like me and another person are basically like each other's property, and the state has permitted us to do this. But yeah, I mean, without getting into like all of my beliefs on marriage, like what do you think about the idea of relationship contracts to like iron out these issues beforehand? Like, I mean, I can kind of see how some people think that this would be like a solution to these issues, but like on some level, I personally feel like there's like a level of absurdity to it, especially when it's coming down to like the level of you owe me X amount of blowjobs per week. Like to me, that's totally keeping score, right? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I get it on that level. But there's the two sides of the coin, right? Because something that springs to mind when you're talking about relationship contracts and that kind of thing, um, with the whole blockchain situation and that kind of stuff. There was I heard about this, and I didn't really look too deeply into it, but I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good thing, right? With all the rape allegations and things going on, and people saying, well, there was consent, there wasn't consent, backwards and forwards, and I recall that there was. I can't even remember what it's called, to be honest, but it was based on blockchain as well, where essentially there was a contract, like a sex contract, right? Particularly if you're out on the town, you're doing your thing, you start vibing with someone, and you're like, yeah, no worries, right? As we say down under. Yeah, and you want to get into the hokey pokey, as you like to call it. Yeah, but there's this whole concern about consent. In the morning, is she going to look at you and be like, "Oh my god, what a minger! Shouldn't have gone home with this bloke." I will say it was rape, right? Which happens. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but yeah, you can say it does happen. So this was designed essentially as a contract, a sexual contract. It's like you and me are both signing this thing saying that we are going to sleep together. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces attached to blockchain, so it can't be mucked around with, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, yeah, well, this is all right, because what it does is solidify the fact that there is consent here, right? Good, right? Until you actually apply it, and people have to actually sign these things, right? Same as like prenups. They're good, right? Technically, right? On paper, they're fantastic until you try and apply it, because the human condition comes in and goes like, how dare you? How dare you, good sir? Are you saying I'm a gold digger? Are you saying that I'm going to accuse you of rape? How dare you? I am offended. The mood is destroyed. I'm not sleeping with you. You're not sleeping with me, and it's not happening. So once we start, applying these, the subjective and objective situation messes things up, because emotions can fuck things up a little bit. So on that aspect, I can see where it can cause more complications. I can also see where people take advantage of this, like, because exactly what you're talking about there, Clays, was, I need to have X amount of blowjobs, and I need to be able to, like, all these bits and pieces. It's just abuse of a perfectly good system. And I don't know. I think it's just what humans do, right? We design something that's supposed to be used in a particular way, and we find a way to abuse it. So what I think you're talking about there, Clay, with the whole blowjobs, the X amount of blowjobs a week and that kind of thing, is abuse of a system that's supposed to be utilized for a different means, a different purpose. But we just modify it and shift it to take advantage of it, because that's what humans do.
Well, I mean, here's like a situation where I can tell you, like, personally, I feel they make a lot of sense, right? Like, if you were into some, for lack of a better word here, more extreme kink, yeah, like, I could see how these things would totally be necessary, right? Like, I mean, I think we have to face the fact that there are people that have rape fetishes and things like this, and I'm talking like
Yeah.
both sides here.
Yeah,
That
well, I was going to talk about that, because essentially I've got a little story for you later. I'll let you finish, but like, just remind me about the rape story.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just that. I mean, like, there's some S&M that could be classified easily as abuse, right? And I mean, like, personally, I could totally see getting involved into one of these consensual relationships with someone. You would want some kind of like, assurance that it's not going to be like, okay, well, the next day the cops are showing up to arrest you for either one, like, assault, or two, rape. Because, like, obviously these things would both be very bad. So yeah, I mean, like I'm saying, if you're like into some kind of like extreme kink, I could totally see the necessity of having a relationship contract. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Like maybe that's the direction we're moving, right? Like if you're gonna get sexually involved with someone, maybe like beforehand do need to, and if nothing else, maybe it'll at least like get you thinking about these decisions beforehand instead of afterwards. Whenever you're getting into this polarizing area where the parties are fighting over it. But I mean, yeah, like if you're not both going into this thing like either looking to make a baby or not make a baby, then we're gonna have problems. Like you've got to be on the same page as far as that goes to not end up in the problems that we're discussing. But yeah, what's up with your story, Cope? Did somebody try to relationship contract you into some kink?
No, not at all. But what you're talking about is rape fantasies, right? And y'all know I've dated some crazy motherfuckers, right? So one of the people I was interacting with had a rape fantasy that they wanted to fulfill. And I'm pretty open. I'm a pretty open person with all of these things. I'm willing to try some things, not everything, but some things to a particular degree. For my partner to feel, or whatever they want to feel in the pleasure cycle. And this sort of like came up, and I'm like, mm, what are you saying? Because it wasn't a direct. It wasn't just like, hey man, I've got a rape fantasy. Would you like to pretend to rape me? And that's not how it came out. It was just kind of like, first it started off with just basic stuff like I like it a bit rough kind of thing, and I'm like, okay. All right. I talked about that, and then it was sort of like escalating to a point where she basically said like what she wanted to do is some role play where she was raped kind of thing. And I'm just like, there was a lot of factors that came into this situation. Of course, there's flags going off in my head going like, fuck, this is dangerous, right? Because she lived in the city. She lived in an apartment block. There's cameras everywhere, all that kind of stuff. And what she wanted to do is basically have me sort of like dress up like I'm robbing the joint kind of thing. And, break in and do the stuff. And I'm just like, Dad, no, because there's cameras everywhere, that kind of thing. Like this is going to end up badly. Like even if we've got safe words and all that kind of stuff, like it's very easy to go from being like, oh, it's just a fantasy thing. Let's have some fun. To being like, no, this happened to me. I didn't want it. And there's camera footage. There's me coming into the building, me leaving the building, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, no, this is too much, man. This is a bit too much. So, look, what I'm getting at here is that there are people that have these kind of like what we'll say far out fantasies and things that they want to do and that kind of stuff. And it's up to us to call the shots because, like I said, ultimately what it came down to is I wasn't willing to do it, right? And of course, that relationship didn't last too long. But this is the thing, and if that's what people are into, that's fine. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's just not for me. If that's what you want to do and you want to find somebody else that's going to do that, fantastic. But I'm not willing to take the risk myself personally for sexual gratification to go through this role play and have the opportunity for it to go south based on the fact that all the evidence is there that this was a real event and it's just based on her word because it won't be my word. Like they don't give a shit what I say. It'll be based on her word. So I made the decision, that kind of thing. And even a contract, if you laid down a contract in front of me and said, okay, well, we're all going to sit down, we're going to agree to these terms, we're going to write down on a contract, I just still wouldn't feel comfortable doing it personally. Some people would. But I feel in that situation, right, if that's something that you were into and you wanted to do, right, this is where these kind of contracts and things like that would be applicable. It'd make sense. You know what? It'd be fucking stupid not to do it, right? Not to have some kind of contract absolving you from any kind of like responsibility if the other person involved says no. Like at the end, well, so they said no. It's like they make it out to be something that it wasn't. But a lot of people won't think about that. It's kind of like because again, when we're talking about contracts, like how many of y'all right out there in the audience, right? When you signed up for your your Facebook app on your phone or like whatever apps that you have on your phone, right? How many of you actually read the contract? Or did you just click I agree and just went, right? And not just with Facebook, but with anything, right? There's a whole bunch of things that you can put on your phone, put on your computer, that kind of thing. And it's free, it's freeware and all that kind of stuff, no problems. But you have to click the I agree button. And the thing is, like, what you got to read is like pages and pages long. It's not nice and short and sweet. No, there's a lot of like small print. There's bits and pieces. People don't read that shit. Well, okay, some people do. I'm going to say everybody doesn't do it. Some people do. But a lot of people don't. They just click the I agree button. They don't really see the small print, the details. And this is where like people like your mate Clay, who want 57 blowjobs a week, right? They'll hide that in the small print, and because the person just wants to get to where they want to go, they want to use the app, or they want to have sex, if you will. They're going to go like, yeah, okay, where do I sign? Yeah, here, no problem. They just sign on the paper, job done. They don't actually understand what it is that they're signing because pleasure principle. So these are all things we need to take into consideration. But I think what it comes down to is that personal responsibility that we have, each and every one of us has that personal responsibility to, pay attention to what's going on. Like, what are you getting involved in? What are you doing? Are you prepared for the outcome if things go south, right? Because everybody thinks that things are going to turn out for them, right? It's like, yeah, I'm special. This is going to work for me. But when it doesn't, are you prepared for that? Because if you're not, that's when shit can go terribly wrong.
Yep. And, all I can say is even getting into one of those situations, you better really, really know and really, really trust whoever you're getting involved with. Like, honestly, I didn't even think about it until you started talking about this, but somebody was totally trying to get me involved into one of these situations before. And, like, I think I pretty much just kind of, like, blew it off and, like, noped out of there. But, yeah, like, I mean, I'm not even going to speculate on I guess you could say, like, the amount of people that have, this fetish, this kink, whatever. And, again, like kind of like what you're saying here, I don't really care if you do or don't. There's no judgment on that, but I'm saying, like, for me personally, to put myself into that situation, like, I don't even know, man. Because, like, the whole thing in my mind would be like, yeah, somebody's about to fuck me over and I'm about to go to jail. Like, I mean, personally, I'd rather just be like, no. I can go without, but, yeah, I mean, for the people that are, like, consensually, like, looking for this thing, I can't even imagine personally, like, getting into that without something like a contract of consent or something, right? Because that's rough. Like, what if, like, how do you even, like, legally defend that? Like there was consent that it was going to be a quote unquote, like, playing non-consensual act. Good luck trying to pass that off on a judge, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah. Well, and that's it. And when it comes to, like, and again, we're talking about the weightedness of the situation. In this situation, do you really think that they're going to take the male side? We're getting sexist here. I'm sorry, right? No, of course not, because males are aggressive and males are dominant and males are, like, all these bits and pieces come forward. So of course, no one's going to give a shit. But we've been asked a question here by a little scribe in regards to if we weren't going to get in trouble for these kinds of things, would it be something that I would agree to? Like, me personally, I've already said, like, no, it's not something that I'm into. But what I am into when it comes to, like, relationships and connecting with individuals and that kind of thing is having the kind of relationship where individuals that I'm interacting with on that level can express themselves to me in whatever way that they see fit. In particular, when it comes to pleasure, right? Because there's a whole bunch of crazy shit out there. We've already talked about normal sex and not normal sex and that kind of thing. There's no such thing as normal sex, right? Everyone's got their own things that they're into, and it can vary person to person. Now, what I try and do is be this is going to sound very boring of me, but I try to be the vanilla, right, ice cream of sex, right? Because essentially what it comes down to, people going, vanilla is boring, right? But vanilla goes with everything. I think you want to put chocolate sprinkles on vanilla, that's cool. You can put chocolate. You want to mix, two different ice creams together. You can put vanilla there. It's not going to fuck shit up, right? You put, like, peppermint ice cream and you mix it with something like choc nut something or other, and it just doesn't really taste that good, right? Vanilla goes with everything, right? So I'm pretty vanilla for the most sense. But when it comes to these kinds of things, and I think we were having a discussion about this before, maybe in one of the after shows in the Pirate or something. I'm pretty sure that Trippy was there too. When we were talking about the dildos and that kind of thing, and Trippy was kind of like, oh, what if your girlfriend wanted to use this horse dildo? And I'm like, good, I'd fucking use it. If that's what she's into, that's what she wants to do. Like, that's how that's what she's into, right? So I'm helping her, right, get to where she needs to go, right? And it's got nothing to do with me. It's about them, right, achieving their pleasure zone, right? And the same for me, mate. Maybe I've got some kinks and some bits and pieces that I'm putting forward as well, and we help each other out in that sense. But there's limitations. Like, I talk sometimes about some of my crazy exes and that kind of shit that I've gone through, like hair pulling and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But like to the extent that we're having like tufts of hair lying around and there's like blood being drawn, like I draw the line, right? And we come to compromises. Like I said, with this particular individual, the compromise was like, if she wants to pull her hair out, right, she can do it, right? I'll, hold your hair a little bit and, that kind of thing, no worries. But if you want to go to that extreme, you do it, right? I'm going to go to my level and you're going to push to whatever level you're happy with if it's beyond my means, right? And I think that this is an acceptable means of interaction, as long as it's consensual, as long as you're both there, as long as it's all good, right? That's what it comes down to. But if it goes beyond that, and like, let's say this chick with the hair pulling, because, rape fantasy is like pretty high in, flags going off and signals going off, alarms sounding and all that kind of crap. I mean, it's pretty full on. But with the hair pulling stuff, if you dial it back to there, you go, okay, well, look, it's something that you're into. It's not really something that I'm into, and I'm willing to have that compromise here. And if we needed to put that on paper, no problems. That's what you're down with. But I think we need to have that that sense of self to be able to go, okay, well, this is what I'm willing to do, and anything beyond that it's just not who I am, right? Because if you're not being yourself, then what are you doing? You're going to end up unhappy, right? So there's a number of things that go into it, right? Sweep, I like to ride the fences. Yeah, I do like to ride the fences. I'm vanilla, bro. Relax, take a chill pill. So yeah, look, Little Scrub, that's how I'd answer that. Is basically like it's not something that I'm into. It's not something that I would have done in any way, shape, or form. As in regards to like rape fantasies and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I've also had individuals want me to be like more domineering and sort of like that kind of thing. I'm like, well, I can put that on a little bit, right? That's no problems. But I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to pull your hair out. I'm not going to do damage, right? And I think that's the thing, like knowing yourself enough to know where your lines are and being open enough to be able to express that with the individual that you're interacting with, and having that as a two-way street. They tell you their things, and if you're not willing to push there, right? And again, if they say, I'm not willing to do this thing, right? Then respect that. You respect each other and go, okay, well, these are our boundaries, these are our lines, right? And I think that's what I think fundamentally that's what we're talking about, is being able to be open enough with an individual, another person, to share this part of yourself with them without them taking advantage of it. And you don't find that in a club, on a night. You just, I just met you, fantastic. Let's go, knock a few rounds out, right, back at my place, and and put that faith in someone without some kind of precautions. And a contract could be that kind of precaution that you need, right? Okay, pull out. Listen. When I take a chick on a date, right, usually what I do for the first date is we play a game of Jenga, right? So then she knows that my pull-out game is strong.
I don't know. And since I guess like apparently I'm supposed to answer that question, I'll tell you this much. I honestly can't say whether I would or wouldn't. I mean, I don't think it's anything that like I would ever actively pursue. But I mean, if it's something somebody like really was like really for whatever reason like wanting or something, and like I'm in the relationship, there's the level of trust and everything, and like I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I mean, I think I would still like totally feel weird about that. I mean, I don't even know, but yeah, I mean, like no, Julie, I don't mind like getting into like kink and stuff like that, but when we're talking about like full on fucking like somebody wants a play rape fantasy, like I don't know, man. Like that's some straight up porn shit, in my opinion. Like I don't know. I mean, if you're in a relationship with the expectation of having like a porn star sex life, I don't know, maybe date a porn star. you know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I've never shied away from adventure, but I mean, I think it's like some things are not necessarily adventure, but more just like stupidity. Because like all it takes is, well, hey, you remember that time you did X? I'm gonna go to the cops, and yeah, it's kind of like, well, fuck. Like, what are you gonna do? Try to like lie your way out of it? I mean, maybe you get away with it, maybe you don't. But like, I mean, to me, that's just like, fuck. That would be like the sword of fucking Damocles hanging over your head as long as you're in that relationship. I can't even imagine. Like, I don't see how. Like personally, I don't see what it would add to the relationship. I guess we could say it like that. And I don't know, man. Like it's yeah, most likely no. I mean, I think like I don't know. Like I said, I've never shied away from adventure, but like that would be pretty fucking extreme in my book. I mean, I'm assuming most people think a rape fantasy is extreme. I don't know. I mean, we all have our own things, but yeah, like the fact that obviously like Cope's had this situation pop up, and I've had it pop up once should at least give you some kind of idea. It's not the strangest fucking thing in the world. So I don't know, man. Like I can't. Like I don't really have any judgments about people that do this kind of shit, but like I don't know if like personally I would want that kind of like a liability in a relationship. That's just my thoughts. But yeah, anybody else got any thoughts to throw out there? Anybody want to unmute and have a debate and tell Cope why he's wrong and he needs to get off the fence?
Well, I did think that you said you wanted Crim to weigh in on this, so Crim's down to weigh in on some of this stuff.
I don't know. Crim.
Crim, 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 Crim.
You know what? Crim's never made weird noises at the end of one of our shows either. It's almost like a rite of passage. Yeah, I mean, we could try, but I mean, it's kind of sounding like she might not even be listening. Yeah. But yeah, no, Julie was just talking about Margaret Atwood. Like, I'm really enjoying her books. Like this is gonna probably sound like maybe like a little sacrilegious here, but of the 5 of her books I've read at this point, The Handmaid's Tale is by far like the worst written one that I've read. And like whenever I say this, like I'm not trying to like say it's a bad book by any means, because like I really did enjoy the book, but I'm saying like it's weird to me that that's her like most well-known book, because the Oryx and Crake trilogy was pretty fucking awesome. But I really think the sequel that she wrote to The Handmaid's Tale, it's called The Testaments. I think I personally enjoyed that book better, but I can tell you, like, hands down, I definitely think it's a better written book. Like, I think it's much more dynamic. It's got a lot better character progression and things like that. I would say, like, it's much better, but I also take into account she wrote The Handmaid's Tale when she was really young. So, like, obviously she's had a full career to, like, develop her writing style. And I think it really shows that she's way more polished now. But yeah, so just my thoughts. Throwing that out there to get some more random shit. And yeah, clearly Crim doesn't want to talk to us, Cope. So I don't know, does anybody else want to talk to us? We could always make Azaria talk to us. She always loves when we drug her.
She likes it when we fight too. And when
hey, Azaria.
You on the path, Izzy?
Oh, she's got herself muted. She thought this out ahead of time. See, like I removed the server mute, but she's still muted. So yeah, Azaria's playing hard to drug onto air tonight.
How dare you, Clay?
Marky,
was it consensual?
We already mentioned the word Steam once tonight, and that's more than we usually mention it. Personally, I'm of the opinion that we have way too many damn shows that talk about nothing but Steam, so I tend to avoid that topic, honestly.
Unless LP's in the house, then we have to talk about it.
Oh yeah, so yeah, if LP shows up, then we like throw out like an obligatory, talking about Steam just to piss them off a little, give them a little hard time.
Mm-hmm. Then, of course, make the progression into crypto in general, which absolutely loves as well. So, we know our audience. We definitely know our audience.
Yep. Oh, we can always try to get Julia to talk. I've heard she's talked before, but she never seems. She's always like in bed or something. Cope, She's like, I'm in bed, chilling, eating some cookies I made earlier or something, and then she never wants to talk to us.
Well, I'm easy whichever way we go. If someone wants to jump on, have a bit of a chat, it's all good. Or even just throw out some topics. Popcorn time.
Oh shit! Is it popcorn time?
Is it?
I don't know, man. Like, I would play it, but then again, I might get copyright striked or something on YouTube.
Maybe.
Did you use my popcorn time in your video without asking my permission?
How dare you, good sir? How dare you?
Yeah, so, I don't know. I guess we could keep going down your list, Cope. What we got next on the list since nobody wants to talk to us?
Alright, so what I'll try and do, is post it in...
We need a hat.
Chat there.
We need to draw from a hat, Cope. We need to have philosophy roulette.
There we go. That was just scribble time on my phone. Sometimes I'm half asleep, sometimes I'm half knocked out on drugs, but I think of weird stuff from time to time. We did read them out at the start of the show. So if any of those sound nice,
I feel like didn't we touch on like the I'm offended culture last time? I think like we just briefly touched on it and then said like we could do like a whole fucking show about that.
Yeah, and you said like it's something I'd like to get into, which is why I chucked it onto the list. Because you said you wanted to talk about it, so it's there for that purpose.
I can't believe it. I get a say on what we talk about, guys.
From time to time.
See, what most people don't know is this really is Cope's show, but like he makes me put my name on it because I'm sorry, we don't like to air our dirty laundry out in public, but yeah. So sometimes he lets me pick a topic.
Well, Peachy's asking the eye contact thing. And look, that came from essentially a conversation I was having where what it came down to is that people are scared to interact with one another because of all of the crazy shit that's going on in society at the moment where, if you look at someone, it's like sexual assaults, right? Depending on how the person takes it. You can't smile at people. You can't say hello. Like, trust me, I've sort of like talked to people just for the sake, like, I'm not trying to pick you up, right? I'm not trying to do nothing. Or we're standing in a bloody line and it's bloody boring, right? So I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I'm not interested. I'm not trying to pick you up. Yeah, well, you're looking at me like this whole sort of like process of like, I need my personal space. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't like anything. Creates this this vibe, if you will, where people are scared to interact with one another. And I see it. It's like when I'm filling up my car at the service station and that kind of thing. Like I'm looking around at people and you can see the tension between people where they're scared to look at each other. They're scared to interact with one another. And I thought it was worth having a bit of chat about. And Swoop, meta-trivialism is something that I've come up with. So that's why it's one of those like, what the fuck is it? Yeah, that's what we're getting at.
So just to touch on the eye contact thing, since you're kind of getting into it a little bit there. This is something that like I've personally noticed a lot of in my life, and one mainly because I used to not make eye contact with anyone, but I feel like there are like some like subtle implications. One being like if you maintain eye contact, it's quote unquote more like, I guess you could say like alpha, right? But also I think something that like pushes away from that is we are now so like reliant on things like text messaging and like digital communication as opposed to like face-to-face human interaction. And I don't know. It's almost like, God, this is gonna sound so horrible. What's a nice way to say what I really want to say here? I can't think of one, so I'll just say it. It feels like technology is pushing us into a type of like learned, almost like somewhere on the spectrum. It might be like a good word for it. It's like we lose a lot of our communication skills, but two, like we start getting like avoidant when it comes to eye contact. I think this is also what's kind of like pushing the idea of like ghosting culture. We talked about that some before. But yeah, like I feel like people will avoid dealing with anything that's quote unquote like difficult. And I mean, I think this is like a thing that has major implications into like leading us further and further down the route of like unhealthy relationships becoming more and more the norm. I mean, I feel like if you can't have face to face, like real communication with someone, then you don't really know them, right? Like, anybody can be anything they want to be or pretend to be anything they want to be online. And, to tie this back into what I was talking about earlier, like this is something that like I've firmly decided. After the last situation, I will not enter into like any kind of like relationships with anyone online again. I've just been burned too many times. So like my thing is like meet in person. If it works out, cool. If it doesn't, cool. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I feel like online communication or text-based communication, which is something that started really blowing up when I was in high school. I've never felt like this is the way to go, if that makes sense to you. Whenever cell phones started getting popular, like I can tell you, like smartphones came about when I was in high school. Uh, I think the first iPhone came out when I was like maybe in 10th grade or something. Ever since like then, I've noticed so many people refuse to like even have a phone call with you. Like they'll only text. And I don't know, man. Like something was like a red flag to me about that from like the time it started. Like whenever I would like try to call my friends and they would never answer, and then like I would get a text back, like a minute later saying like "What's up," and I'm just like. And like, look, I can totally understand. Like, there are sometimes you don't want to answer the phone, right? Like there, whatever. But like the fact that people would like totally be in a situation where they could answer the phone but didn't want to even have like verbal communication, like to me it's really weird, right? And I mean, I totally grew up in the age of like AOL Instant Messenger. You know what I'm saying? Like texting people, etc. It's not like unusual to me. But I feel like culturally, or as a society at least, like we're moving into this space where people don't really know how to handle like face to face verbal communication. And maybe it's just something that I perceive, but I mean, to me, it looks like the obvious trend of where we're going, and I think that contributes to the eye contact thing.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's becoming so common and widespread that these kinds of interactions become foreign to us. And I think that's kind of like the teeter totter, if you will, of where we're at the moment, where people are scared to interact with one another. And it may have started out, like you were saying, the whole phone call thing and that kind of thing. Like, I get that people are busy sometimes and all that kind of thing. Like, look, I'll tell you personally, I don't like to talk to people because people fucking suck. Right? I've mentioned that quite a few times. I'll stand by it. Feel free to quote me. People are dumb, and for those kind of reasons, I'm just like, oh man, like interacting with people sucks. Um, but at the same time, I can see it going to a zone beyond that, where it's not just people just trying to avoid interactions and that kind of thing, but it gets to a point where people feel they need to be aggressive to a particular degree to avoid contact. And I think that's kind of like what I'm focusing on here is like, if you make eye contact with someone, like people go, oh, you're looking at me sexually. Like, no, I'm fucking looking at you because you're standing in my way, right, or something like that, right? When I talk to someone, it's not me trying to invade your personal space. I'm not trying to do anything except have a conversation with you or like whatever it is. But there's a real heavy shift that's happening, and what I'm finding is that it's what I see, at least anyway. It's difficult for people to interact with one another, and I'm just wondering, like, is this really where we're going? Is this how we want the future to be? Essentially, a whole bunch of people attached to their devices, clinging to them like they're the lifeline, and that they portray this imagery on their social media that they're advanced and they're connected and they're having all these great, fantastic adventures and that kind of thing, when they're really just cowering at home, scared of interacting with other people because of whatever reason. It's kind of scary, to think that's where we're going, where people are scared to, even look at each other. It's not so much the interaction of speaking, that kind of thing, but even just like looking or smiling at someone, which like it's a knee jerk reaction. Like I'll lock eyes with a stranger walking down the street, kind of thing, and I just like smile and give him a "G'day, mate, how you going?" kind of thing. And that's the way that things were, if you will, right? But these days, that can be taken as like an assault. You're invading my space and that kind of thing, and it's like people are scared to even make eye contact. And I don't know, I see it as being a slippery slope to some pretty hardcore shit.
Hardcore shit like rape fantasies?
Well, look, rape fantasies are rape fantasies, and people have them. And like we've said, people are entitled to be down with whatever they're down with. But don't expect people that are uninterested in playing that way to just be like, oh yeah, no worries, let's have a bit of a crazy rape fantasy.
Well, okay,
I think that'd be detrimental to my existence.
let's jump in this wormhole for a second here. What if these things are on some level connected, right? Like the avoidance of like quote unquote like real human interaction, effective communication. Like what if these things do tie together, and like maybe that's why some people have this like fetish, kink, whatever you want to call it. Like what if it's just easier to have someone do whatever they want to do with you and you not have to like think about it, or like really getting into that realm, because like what if we're like creating this situation? And like I don't know, man, because like obviously I get that there's like some people want like some rough kind of like kinky sex, you want to be dominated, etc. But I mean, like when we're getting into the realm of like full on rape fantasies, like I don't know, man. Like I gotta imagine there's got to be like some kind of like psychological stuff in play there of like why this is the route you want to go, right? I mean, I don't know, and like I feel like we're getting into this area, and I'm not blaming technology, but I mean I think the way we use it, we're getting very much to where we just dehumanize other people, and I mean like I would think, well, maybe not rape fantasy, maybe actual rape, but I would say that's pretty high up on the list of like the most dehumanizing you can be for another person, right? Like you're literally like looking at them as like an object to go and force yourself upon. And yeah, I mean, like consent, no consent, I mean it's still got to be very dehumanizing either way, in my opinion. And that's why I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're unrelated things, if that makes sense. I think, like, all in all, this is just something that I've noticed as society. We're getting further and further away from real human interaction. And I guess you gotta kind of, like, imagine on some level this is by design, right? I mean, we keep making more and more technology to keep pushing us further in this direction.
Well, I think with the human interaction and that kind of thing, the more removed we become from actual human interaction. Because look, let's just be real with the situation here. When we're interacting with other people, there's a lot of things we need to take into consideration. Right? Now we're talking about smiling and looking at each other and that kind of thing. But let's just say we do spark up a conversation with someone. We're taking into consideration their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, their cultural background, all these bits and pieces, right? It's hard, right, for an individual to interact with another. There's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. Maybe you're going to be hiding parts of yourself because they may be offensive. Maybe a little bit racist, maybe a little bit sexist, maybe there's a whole bunch of bits and pieces that you think, well, you know what, I'm just going to keep this on the down low, keep it on the back burner because I need to have a social interaction. So I need to become, air quotes, normal, a normal person in society, so I can interact with people in society. Whereas when we have this sort of like introverted interaction with technology, because this is the thing we were saying, technology, so like, it's not face to face. Even just the basic concept of the trolls, Swoop, the trolls, they don't have to really see the facial expressions, right? Because that's another thing. Like when we look at other people's faces, so there's a lot of stuff that happens there, right? We've talked about Paul Ekman's work with micro expressions and that kind of thing. So when you say something mean to another person, face to face, you get to see that little part of their soul die. You get to see their heart break. You get to see all those bits and pieces, and that's somewhat unpleasant. I mean, there's some sadist there and that kind of thing. Like, I get it, right? There's people that enjoy it, but for the most part, the reason why people can be so cruel to one another on the internet is because they don't have to have that personal interaction. They don't get to see the facial expressions. They don't get to hear the people cry and that kind of thing. Just kind of like, it was a burn. That was fucking awesome. I'm going to go and, smoke some weed and masturbate. Great. Good job, mate. So we don't get to see the other side of that thing, the human condition, if you will. Had to say it at least once on the show. So when we are removed to that degree, we get to create our own universe, right? So in this person's universe, the troll, right, that I just mentioned just there, Swoop, this troll gets to say what they want to say. It was funny. There was high fives. People laughed. But there's no negative repercussions from the interaction, from the behavior and that kind of thing. Whereas, when you do it in real life, like, dude, I'm pretty sure we've all said something, putting our foot in our mouth and just feeling like a bit of a heel for doing so. Maybe the joke didn't land, that somebody ran off crying, or like whatever it is, and we're just like, oh, fuck, that was a bit harsh, or it's a bit too much, that kind of thing. We don't have that when it comes to creating our own universe. And particularly when we create our own universe and we can define it in any way that we see fit, we can turn around and go, okay, well, rape is cool. Like, there's no victims in rape because I've chosen to be raped. There's nothing wrong with it. And we kind of like put aside the whole fact that, like, let's be real here. Like, rape is a horrible fucking thing, right? It's a terrible thing to happen to someone. Like, okay, if you have a fantasy of it and you get to control the environment, you choose, because, like, in the situation, the example that I gave, the person that I was interacting with had chosen me as a sexual partner. So as much as they're going to act like, oh no, don't do this to me, you are a terrible person, right? They're fine having a sexual relationship with me, right? So it's not a bad thing. But trust me, if I was like, some guy that was at the end of her spectrum of like visibility as far as attractiveness goes, I, had stinky ass breath, I was like an asshole, I had a bunch of diseases, all these bits and pieces, she'd be like, nah, fuck you, I'm not interested in having a sexual interaction with you. It would be a very different fucking story. What I'm getting at here is when we sort of like pull back into ourselves, into our own universe, into our own world, and we lock out everybody else, the world that we create can be anything that we want it to. A universe, if you will, can be anything that we want it to be. So things like rape can be made pleasurable, whereas like interacting with the outside world can be detrimental. It's hard, it's difficult. And what have I said multiple times about the human condition is essentially we gravitate to what is easy. And if pulling back, going into a virtual reality, which, like, I'm not talking about putting goggles on your head, but it could be involved in this process as well. But a virtual reality where you control the environment completely and you are happy with anything that you choose, it's basically your design. Well, of course, you're going to be able to make these decisions and have these things happen within your control and not have a problem with it. But going out into the outside world, that means there's a degree of not knowing what's going to happen. There's a degree of relying on somebody else to take part in this kind of thing, and because of that unreliability, it's easier to regress into sort of like the self. And I think that's kind of like part of that pleasure principle that we're talking about here, where because we have control of this environment, like that is the self. If we choose to lock out other people and go, okay, I'm not going to interact with others, I'm not going to let them into my universe, I'm not going to let them into my world, I have that control of my environment, which gives me the illusion of control, is probably the best way to put it. So we are gravitating towards the illusion of control by locking out the variables, air quotes, variables, which is other people. And we can create the universe that we want to. And I think that that's what we're attracted to, personally.
That's an interesting statement. Rape is on a spectrum. I'm trying to think, like, to me, the only, like, line is there consent or not, right? Because I think that's why ultimately, like, and this is what I was saying earlier about, like, I can't honestly answer that question of whether or not I would or wouldn't. But obviously, like, I have some major red flags and hesitations it even really coming up, right? But yeah, I mean, like, to me, the whole thing is if there is consent, like, point blank, period, it's not rape. At the moment there is not consent or there is no longer consent, then you have a problem. So now, yeah, like, we can get into, like, some more fucking weird ass situations here. You know, like, what happens when you're having sex and then, like, all of a sudden in the middle, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, to me, at that point, that's where you stop, and it's over, right? But there's plenty of people that would be like, "Nah, I'm gonna finish," and it's like, okay, well, now are you technically raping someone? I mean, from like my perspective and the way that, like, I identify this, I would say yeah. But, here we go. We live in a world where some people believe at the moment of conception you have a human life, and you have other people that believe, nothing. I mean, like, we get into some really fucking weird gray areas with relationships. I think is the best takeaway from this show tonight. I don't know. But yeah. As far as I go, if there's consent, then it's never actually, like, call it whatever you want, like a rape fantasy, call it just, like, into some, like, rough kinky section, like, whatever. But if there's consent, then the whole question of rape is, like, out of the window, in my opinion.
Well, look, that's where it comes down to, like, people's personal perspectives and that kind of thing. And look, like I said, for me, it's just like, no, it's not going to happen. Just, it's, even if there's consent, even if there was a contract, even if there was, like, all these kinds of things, it's not something that I'm down with, in the sense of, that interaction for me doesn't seem appropriate for me as an individual. Like, and there's plenty of things that are out there that are not for you. You know what I mean? Like, feel free to choose any kind of, like, thing that you want to, whether it's homosexuality, trans, take your pick. There's a bunch of things that apply for some people and don't apply for others. Just because they don't apply to you doesn't mean that you're, completely against it and you are picketing, how dare these people do these things. Like, no, it's just not for you. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we have the right to discriminate against particular things. I mean, like, the clothes that you're wearing, right? You chose those out of all the other clothes. How dare you've discriminated against the rest of your closets? The rest of your closet is so offended. Like, no, relax, right? It's just not something that you're into. That's fine. But if we're going to sit there and try and convince ourselves to do things that we don't want to do, to be people that we're not going to be, well, that we aren't, right? We're going to end up with some pretty horrible fucking results at the end of it, because we're being fake, we're not being real, we're not being honest. So, like I said, there's room for compromise and bits and pieces. Like I said, like, I tend to find some decent compromises in between some of the extreme shit that I'm asked. Because keeping in mind, like I said, I'm very vanilla when it comes to these kinds of things. When it comes to the kind of things that they're asking for, I'm kind of like, okay, well, look, I'm not going to do that. That's a bit too much for me. But here's what I'm willing to do. And we come down to a compromise, and vice versa. So there's plenty of things that, like, without going into too much detail, right? There's been plenty of people that I've interacted with that have, some far out shit, like, say, like a rape fantasy stuff, right? But they'll say no to the most, air quotes, normal thing, right? Kind of like, okay, so you probably would have had the whole Julia Roberts thing, and God, now the movie's escaping me where she's a prostitute. Pretty Woman, right? Like the no kissing, and it's like ridiculous. Like, really, like kissing is the thing that you're going to say no to. Okay, well, look, this is the thing. Like people are different. People have different expectations and that kind of stuff. So, it's about compromise. And if you're willing to do so, great. And if you're not, right, because there's some things that people are it's just like no, right? Like one individual said that they wanted to penetrate me. And I'm like, no, that's just not going to happen.
Holy shit, somebody wanted to peg Cope?
Fully peg me, bro. 100%. So yeah, and I was just like, look, that's not going to happen. I'm not interested in that any way, shape or form. And we reached a compromise, you know what I mean? Which was no to that, but other stuff, okay, well, we talked about other things. And this is what I mean, like, what are you comfortable with? If you're pushing beyond your comfort zone, right, in some of these things, you're going to end up, in uncomfortable positions. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And you may end up hating yourself later. So why do it in the first place?
Man, I'm not even joking, dude. Whenever you said we came to a compromise, my first thought was, what's the compromise? One finger? Oh god!
No, there was like a list of demands, and this is the thing. Like, it's never just one thing. It's never just one thing. Like, we may think it's one thing, but it's never just one thing, right? So like in the grand scheme of things, there was a list of demands, if you will.
Dude, that's life right there, man. Like life is just a fucking never-ending list of demands.
No, true, and like I said, you need to sort of like make decisions, make compromises from time to time, or just say no, flat out, right? And there's some things where I just said no, like the whole rape fantasy and that kind of thing. I was just like, yeah, no, it's not happening. Finger in the butt, not interested. Thank you very much. But there was other stuff. There's other stuff this person was interested in, which I really didn't have much interest in. But I was just like, well, I've tried it. Okay, they wanted to do some foot stuff, right? I'm not really into feet stuff, but that's what they wanted to do. Okay, well, we'll do that. No to the butt stuff, but yes to the feet stuff. All right, we'll see what. Okay, well, I'm not really a big fan. No problems. Let's move on to something else. This is what I mean, like, and keeping in mind that ultimately what it came down to is all of these relationships ended, right? So I think that's kind of like a reflection on this whole thing is, if you're seeing these things and you're not really down with it, I think what it comes down to is ultimately it's not going to work out.
See, Cope, you gotta get better at bartering, bro. What you gotta do is be like, okay, look. We can try, like, the tip of one pinky, but then you gotta do some fence stuff with me. Like you gotta get them into the fence fetish, right? I mean, it's all about expanding your horizons, like, what's a little pinky in the pooper, I mean, in the grand scale of the universe, I don't even think it registers, right?
Well, look, the thing is like, the fence stuff gets an easy pass most of the time, but it ain't easy to do. There's plenty of people that can't jump on the fence. They want to jump on the fence, they try to, but they can't. It's too much. It's a brain explosion, overload kind of thing, and they can't handle being on the fence. What can you do?
Well, see, Cope, that's when you have like those fantasies where you're gonna like pick them up and put them on the fence. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, you don't want to force people to do things, man. Look, and that's another thing as well. Like, if you think that's trying to hoodwink and bamboozle, to connive and steal your way into particular positions is going to work as snot. Because what happens is when they actually realize what's going on, and they will realize what's going on. They'll just resent you for it. They'll hate you for it, and it'll end up being pretty nasty. So, and this is what I mean. Like, I think what it comes down to is knowing who you are, being able to express that, relying on the other person to do the same thing. And if they can't do that, and if you start seeing some of the signs of, like, well, they're not really being genuine, they're kind of like trying to trick me into doing some fingy in the butt stuff, or they're trying to trick me into having a child when I don't want one, or these kinds of things, just that's enough of a flag for you to go like, well, what am I doing here? Like, why am I spending my time with this individual? Am I that invested, right? Sunk cost fallacy. Am I that invested in this that I'm willing to put up with things that I do not agree with, that I'm not willing to tolerate, right? But I'm going to tolerate it because I'm, air quotes, in love with this person. I've already sunk 2 years into the relationship, and it's easier to do this than it is to go and find someone else. Like, dude, you're only ripping yourself off.
Man, I'm trying to now see, like, my mind's already been derailed. I'm off trying to figure out, like, what's the female equivalent of "oops, I missed." You know, interesting. Well, tonight.
Well, look, if a woman comes out like, wanted to do some fingy in the butt kind of stuff, and I'm like, no, no, you want to be penetrated, and she walks out with a strap on, my mind is going to start saying, hey, there's something a little bit sus going on here. I said no to penetration, yet here she is wearing a strap on. I have a bit of an issue here.
Well, Cope, she just thought you had a rape fantasy.
Yeah, well, she didn't tell you that the rape fantasy was her raping you, right?
Plot twist. Plot twist. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to take away from getting into like this area of like kink and like people pushing each other's boundaries, etc. Effective communication is obviously important, right? And if you don't have like a good sense of like self autonomy, and you're just letting someone push you into doing shit you don't want to do, like it's gonna create resentment in the other direction too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. I'm all for people going out there trying some different shit and figuring out what they like, right? But yeah, I mean, I feel like not having effective communication skills would be very detrimental in this area, especially if you're like involved with somebody that's more aggressive or like more experienced or whatever you want to call it. Somebody that's gonna like push you into doing all kind of things that you may or may not be comfortable with. It's probably a good idea to work on those communication skills and, well, one, either prevent yourself from being in that situation in the first place, or two, being very capable of saying no. Like, I don't want to do that. So yeah, I mean, I get it. It's kind of funny, thingy in the poop hole, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a real issue, and again, that kind of ties into some of the things we were talking about earlier. Communication, very important. But yeah, it's interesting. Now I've got to go. Whenever we get off of here, I'm gonna have to go into X videos and look up fence stuff, because I mean, I got to figure out what this is all about. I bet you little scribe's already over there looking it up.
Well, look, I'm sure if there's something you can think of, there's going to be some kind of fetish shit based around it. That's kind of like what I've discovered in my interactions with individuals. That basically it's kind of like, dude, like really, that's a thing, right? So, well, yeah, they show you stuff on the internet and these kinds of things, but and I do feel like, I'm just thinking about it now, it's pretty interesting that, considering I'm, as I've said, self-confessed vanilla ice cream, the amount of extreme interactions I've had with other individuals, because I don't, misrepresent myself as being anything else but what I am. Like, I'm down with radical honesty. I'm open. I'm sort of like, well, this is what I am. This is what I do, kind of thing. And yeah, if you really think about it, the kind of interactions that I've had, like people get like, oh man, that's some crazy shit, man. Like, you're into some crazy shit. Well, I'm not into crazy shit. I'm actually not into a lot of crazy shit, but it's just the people that I've interacted with are into crazy shit, and that's a bit of a flip on its head, right? Because from what I understand, at least anyway, it's usually like the air quotes, the males. Yes, I'm being sexist again. The males that are into all the crazy kink and that kind of shit. When if we're going on the statistics of my personal experience, most of the crazy shit comes from females, right? And again, that's not being sexist, but it's just saying that this is the sample that I've worked with, right? But it kind of goes against the grain of what the majority of people I've spoken to kind of like lean on. So kind of like, oh, it's the guys. The guys are into weird shit. The guys like to do these kinds of things. Oh no, it's people like to do these things, right? And again, like when I say my position as a male interacting with females, it's just that, like I said, that's the sample. But I don't think that it is males or females. I think that it's just people in general, right? Like to do some crazy shit. There's no normal, right? They like to do some crazy shit, and a lot of times they hide that for X amount of time, and then slowly the crazy comes out because people are fucking crazy, dog.
Yeah, man. Interesting show tonight. I think that's about the best way I could like sum this up. I should have known whenever we start off talking about abortion, we're obviously going to end up in Fingy in the butthole and rape fantasy territory. But it is what it is. Fuck, I don't know. Like, what's the next topic on the list, Cope? We can start off
I'm,
for
I'm still
you.
I'm still
you
waiting to see if Krim wants to jump on and make comments on the first part of the show, and make some crazy noises at the end of the show.
Krim, you want to come talk about fingies in the buttholes with us?
Fingy in the butt, fingy in the butt, fingy in the butt.
Hey, look, all I can tell you is, somebody that's been to her Thursday show, I, I don't think fingies in the butthole would be outside of her like comfort realm for talking about stuff on a show. I mean, fuck, we've had airplane glory holes. I mean, they've created a whole fictitious island of dildo roth. Yeah, I mean, shit, dude. Like, there's got to be like 20 photoshopped pictures of like Krim with well, photoshopped or not photoshopped pictures of Krim with dildos. So I mean, like maybe, I don't think we're outside of her comfort area, but I think like what's ultimately going on here is Krim's either one falling asleep or two fake news.
Either or, she ain't here. That's what it comes down to. But I see, Amber so like said, glory holes. Yeah, well, look, that glory holes, man. That's another thing as well. Like, dude, like, okay, I'm gonna get you a little update on a story that happened here in Australia. Right, it was a while ago. It was a few months ago. It's probably halfway through the year, maybe a bit earlier. But I didn't even know these things were like real. I thought that this stuff was like another one of the pornography like fantasies that was in porno land. Just like when a pizza delivery guy rocks up, like that doesn't happen in real life, right? There's no dude that rocks up and says I've come to deliver the sausage kind of thing, and then it turns into a porn scene. Like it doesn't. And then your partner walks in and goes, "Oh my god, you're cheating on me!" And then instead of being offended and saying "fuck you, we're done," they join in, and then the neighbor comes and they do the same thing. Like this is like fantasy shit, right? But apparently they're a real thing in Australia. I'm sure everywhere else as well. I was a little bit surprised. But there was this dude who utilized a glory hole as is intended, and the person on the other side decided to take a bit of a nibble, a considerable nibble. In fact, the entire head of his penis was bitten off, and the dude that was in there doing the biting took off like a bat out of hell, if you will. And the guy came around, basically screamed like he bit my dick off and passed out. And I'm just like, all right, let me see if I've got this straight. Now, as a rational human being, I would never stick my penis in a hole with a stranger on the other side and assume that things are going to go well for me. In fact, if this person because I don't even know if like these things, these glory holes is kind of like there's a sign on the door that says, "Hey, this is a glory hole. Like if you don't want to get a dick in your face, don't go into this bathroom stall." Um, like do you really think that is a wise thing to do? And I think it's kind of like rolls back to what we are talking about before when it comes to consent and having contracts and that kind of shit. The contract in my brain says don't stick your dick in a hole with a stranger on the other side because you never know what the fuck is going to happen. But for some people, they think that that's a cool thing to do. I'm just going to stick my dick through a hole and let a stranger do stuff to my penis, and I trust that this person is going to be nice with my penis on the other side of this wall. It just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, sorry, it's just not something that I do.
The philosophy of glory holes. Oh God, that's another whole show there, Cope.
I'll put it on the list if that's what you want. I'll chuck it on the list right
now. I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. Like, here's the thing. Like, I feel like if you're going somewhere that has a glory hole and you're doing that, like, I think like the expectations and the understanding of how these things work would pretty much, kind of like dictate what happens. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of like anything that would really like justify the whole biting experience. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're gonna go like randomly sticking your junk in random holes, and yeah, I mean, you're gonna get what you get, right? Like, you don't know what's on the other side. Just like if you go around hooking up with random people, you don't know if you're gonna get STDs, right? I mean, I guess some of the unknown is what like adds the appeal to that. But yeah, I think Julia summed it up best there. It's risky business.
Definitely. Look, like just basic human interaction is risky business. Let alone because like I said, I don't know what the formation, the format, and these kinds of things of like glory holes. Like I don't know how they work. Like I'm sorry, I'm not that advanced in these kinds of things. I don't have a PhD in it. But yeah, it's some risky shit. Whereas going back to human interaction and that kind of thing, like there's a lot of people that'll be like, whether they're at a party or whatever it is, and there's like a junkie that's like basically got a needle hanging out of their arm, and like you can just see that they just made a whole bunch of like bad decisions in their lives, and they look at that person and go like, yeah, I'll fuck them for tonight. Job done, kind of thing. And I'm just like, dude, like, fucking serious? Are you utilizing your brainium? Because like you said, there's STDs, there's a whole bunch of like, what if you get them pregnant? What if like there's that kind of thing. And again, that's the male perspective. I'm sorry, that's where I'm at. Right? I'm a male perspective is where I'm at. I'm sorry for being sexist. But yeah, like these things run through people's heads, and some people are just like, yeah, fuck it, like that'll do, job done. Whereas I tend to think it's an idiocracy situation where a lot of the air quotes smarter people will just go like, yeah, nah, not worth the risk. There, it's too much, as Julie would say, risky business to be sticking my dick in that. Right, whether it's another individual who isn't to the standard of people you'd normally interact with, or whether it's sticking your dick in a hole, like just a random hole somewhere, and hoping that the person on the other side of that wall is going to treat you kindly. It's just too much, right? It's just too much of a risk to take to interact with these kinds of things, and I really don't understand how people are surprised when things don't turn out so great. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, this is reminding me of this fucking joke that I heard. And I don't know if I should tell it or not.
It's your show, man.
Okay, fuck it. Oh man. So there's these group of guys. They're like, I guess like in the military together, or whatever. They're on deployment, and like one of the guys is new to the camp, and he's like kind of asking around, like like what do you guys do, whenever you want to get off or whatever, like do we ride into town? Is there like a brothel, something like that? And most of the guys didn't say anything, right? And then this other one guy like walks up and he's like, psst, look man, I'll tell you, but you gotta keep it on the DL. And he's like, okay, what? He's like, there's this tree out back. And he's like, a tree? He's like, yeah, man, just look. Like, all you gotta know is you just go over there. There's a hole in it, and you stick your dick in there, and it's nice. And the guy's like, a tree? And he's like, yeah. Look, I tell you what. He's like, wait till you go on break. Just go out back and give it a shot. So the guy goes walking out there. I mean, he finds the tree exactly where he thinks it's supposed to be, and he's like, whatever, I'll give it a shot. And he slides on in there, and it's amazing, right? He's like, wow. He's like, this is like the best feeling ever. And he does this thing, goes back to camp. And he's telling the guy about it. He's like, wow, man, that was amazing. It's like, the best experience I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, yep, whatever. And they keep going about doing their thing. So the guy goes out there the next day. Same thing happens again. He's loving it. Third day, just keeps on going. And then the next time he goes out there, he slides in there and like nothing happens, right? And he's sitting there like looking around like I don't understand, man. Like why isn't it doing anything? So he goes back to the camp, and he's like telling the other guy, he's like, man, I think it's broke or something. It's not working anymore. And the guy's like, what? And he goes, yeah, like I went out there last night and it's not working. And the guy goes, yeah, dumbass, it's because it's your turn to get behind the tree. Oh, dude, and then, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, like, word for word how the joke goes, but that's the gist of it. Basically, they had a hollowed-out tree that was a glory hole, and the guy's an idiot, I guess. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You got your first glory hole joke on Coffee and Philosophy, guys.
Mm-hmm. Take it to the bank. Take it to the bank. It's good shit.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Like, fucking Patient Zero seems to want to go into overtime, but I don't know, man. It feels like we're kind of, I guess, I think we've already been through glory holes and rape fantasies and abortion. I mean, fuck, dude. I mean, we're basically doing a Clown World / Full Force show right now, so.
Well, Peachy was saying that all the shows seem to blend into one, so why not? Eh? But Krim is back. I'm not sure if she's back enough to jump on and comment on the show this evening.
I don't think Krim wants to talk to us.
It's because of me, isn't it?
Yeah, I think she's
How
racist.
dare you?
She's racist against the Aussies, but only the men. Aww.
Racist against Aussies.
Oh, now you made her go away. See, you see what you did,
I
Cove?
didn't do anything. I was making a suggestion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and people, can agree or not agree. It's all part of consent. Should we make a contract? Maybe we should make a contract, and each of us sign it.
See, look, she's listening from the road, so yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, you should totally come on one night and tell us all about why feminism is right.
Well, look, there's elements of feminism that are on point. I believe it's just the extreme end that makes it a little bit crazy. But isn't that the situation with everything? It's always the extremists that fuck shit up for the rest of the air quotes normal people.
Yeah, no, and I'll totally agree with that. There is a lot of elements of feminism that I definitely agree with, and I think it's totally had a solid purpose in pushing us closer towards some kind of like level of equality and respect for each other between men and women. But I definitely think like all of these things, there is a totally fucking toxic element to it, and yeah, I mean, not even just TERFs, though. I mean, like, I think there's, like, some legit, like, man-hating version of feminism out there, and I think it doesn't really make sense to me, right? But, I mean, like, I guess I can get how that branch would come to exist, but, like, the whole thing is, like, this was about creating equality, like allegedly it was about, making the world less oppressive for women. Like, I totally get all of that. But whenever you get into the realm of going past equality towards, like, we now need to make men, like, the subservient area. Like, it just, to me, like, that's almost getting into the realm of, like, some kind of, like, revenge or punishment for a history that we didn't really have anything to do with. Yeah, and I mean, I guess we could look at it from the fact that, like, there's cultural standards and things in place that maybe some of us are even still, like, unaware of. Like, I can get that too, but I feel like whenever you cross that line from going towards something peaceful and trying to, like, empower to something toxic and trying to, like, dominate. I think that's where like my gripes go as far as like feminism goes. But I don't even really consider that feminism, right? Like I literally consider it a separate thing, and I usually refer to it as toxic feminism. But I mean, like I totally agree. There's toxic masculinity too. So I mean, it's not like I only have a gripe with one of these things. But yeah, I think it would be a really good show to do one night.
Definitely. Well, I would have to put it out there and use the dumbed down version of it. It's reverse sexism. That's all that it is. Right? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's like reverse racism. It's ridiculous, but it's funny to comment on, right?
Yep. Man, Azaria's
Yeah,
a
look,
Azaria's a toxic Catwoman. Prove me wrong. Ooh,
mhm. You can't prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
I think she's got cat scratch fever.
Izzy just likes fights. She likes it when I say path. She likes to see fights, and she likes to hear the number seven.
7?
Seven.
7.
It's only seven sounds, mate. It's only seven kind of sounds.
7. 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7. Yeah. Every now and then in chat, we bait Krim into one of these feminism talks, and I do kind of enjoy them. You know, like we get to see like the other perspective, and I think we agree on a lot of stuff. I think it would make for a good show one day.
Yeah, well, I think that you would be the perfect fence sitter, Clay, because seeing as Krim is a feminist, and I am a toxic masculinity, white supremacist, sexist. I don't know whatever else I've been called. So it'd be a good show because clearly, Krim and I would lock horns and we'd have a big fight. And it'd be a huge Jerry Springer moment that I'm sure Izzy would love to see happen. So we should maybe make some arrangements and organise the big fight, FITE. So Izzy's happy. 7.
Oh god, man, this Sloop's making me think about that meme. There's a meme, like one of the left-right memes, whatever. It's supposed to be like a red pill. It says like Islam is right about women, and it's like people can't compute, right? Because like all of the people that are promoting Islam as like a religion of peace and everything, blah blah blah, and then like Islam is right about women, and it's like you had to go yes or no on this, right? Like it either is or it isn't. And then like when you start like learning about the shit that actually goes on, how women get treated, etc., and you realize like, fuck, well, obviously there's some problems here. I don't think we have time to really get into all of that, but yeah, that's definitely clown world territory. But I can say like any religion that oppresses and like dehumanizes one sex to me is a problem, and I think it's definitely something to talk about. But yeah, I mean I think this would be good for the show about like getting offended by things, right? Because I think like if we look at the like the online / SJW kind of like cultural movements we seem to be having. There's definitely some straight up contradictory insanity that goes on in it, and yeah, I mean, I feel like trying to support a religion that does these things and trying to like make other people accept it, etc., is not very fair, and it's definitely not like taking into full consideration the implications of what you're saying, right? Like, and this is also why I don't support Christianity. I mean, any religion that like literally says, and you can read it in the book, gay people should die. It's a sin. You're going to hell. Women that are no longer virgins have no worth. They've lost all their value. They should be put to death because they're no longer a virgin. I mean, there are so many things that make it unpeaceful that like I gotta Yeah.
Well, I think it comes down to anything that is dogmatic is stupid, right? I think this is the most simple way to put it, and that's what it comes down to. Whether it's religion, whether it's feminism, whether it's anything else, if there's that dogma attached, even scientism makes it stupid.
Yep. Well, hey, Cope, we technically made it into overtime, so I guess everybody should be happy now. I don't know, man. Would you want to do some weird noises? You know, it'd be
Overtime
funny.
noises.
You know, it'd be funny. Let's just like unmute everybody and everybody make weird noises tonight.
Hey man, I'm down. I'm down.
Dude,
Let's do it.
that would be wild. Dude, I don't even know. Like, imagine the beautiful, horrific music we would make from every. And that's the thing is, Arya, this will be the one time that I do record it, and it'll just be like the craziest weird noises we've ever had. What do you guys think?
That's right.
Are you guys down?
Okay. We're going to use all 7 noises, Izzy. All 7 kinds of sounds that you can make. We're going to use them all today.
So does that mean some people are gonna have to make the same noise since there's more than 7 people?
Well, we can do a whole bunch of different stuff, but as long as we're all making the different noises, it'll count.
Okay. Hopefully nobody's like doing anything that they don't want anybody else to hear. You know, and like
Get
has
out of the
their
glory holes.
Yeah.
Get away from glory holes.
If anybody's watching porn or masturbating, good time to check out. Okay.
I'm unmuted and ready to go.
Let's go. Azaria, help me unmute. Start from the bottom.
This is gonna be great.
Of course it is. We're getting there. One by one. On to the next one.
Glory hole, glory hole. Glory
Holy shit! Is Little Scribe's story?
That's the
tried,
baseline.
yeah, I tried to Stace, but she does not pencil. That was hard.
Okay, guys. Weird noises, go.
Little Scribe is snoring.
Everybody,
Little
shh,
Scribe is
let's hear it.
snoring.
Popcorn time? Popcorn time?
Glory.
Popcorn time?
Thanks for coming out tonight, everybody.
hole, glory